Folks, it is time for my official Tampa Bay Buccaneers 2023 NFL mock draft. Hopefully you guys do enjoy these types of videos. If you do, hey, go ahead and hit the like button and let me know your thoughts and opinions about my mock draft down in the comments section below. And if you're new, hey, go ahead and subscribe. But let's not waste any time. This is a full 7-round mock draft. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have 9 total selections in this mock draft, so let's go ahead and dive right into it. In the first round, pick number 19, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selecting Anton Harrison, offensive tackle out of Oklahoma. Now, this was a pretty interesting selection that ultimately came down to Darnell Wright out of Tennessee or Anton Harrison out of Oklahoma. There were some other guys that I considered, like a Lucas Van Ness, like a Nolan Smith, but ultimately I don't think those guys are going to be available for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selection, but I do think that Anton Harrison and Darnell Wright will be. I went with Harrison in this mock draft because of the experience he has playing left tackle. He started 24 games at left tackle in his collegiate career, whereas Darnell Wright played right tackle during his collegiate career. This means that you can keep Tristan Wirfs over at right tackle and still have a very solid option over at left tackle, because Anton Harrison graded out to be one of the top tackles in the entirety of the NFL draft. He figures to be a first-round pick right around where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select, so it just makes a lot of sense. Why mess with a good thing with Tristan Wirfs when you could just overall get a solid tackle here in Harrison? And your offensive line would be Anton Harrison at left tackle, Tristan Wirfs at right tackle, Ryan Jensen at center, then some combination of Aaron Stinney, Robert Hainsey, Nick Leverett, or Luke Gedeke at both of these starting guard spots. And that is a pretty solid offensive line in my opinion. I think that it is a good move on from a guy like Donovan Smith to plug in a guy like Anton Harrison. It shows a high-level investment at one of the league's most important positions at left tackle, and you can keep Wirfs where he has been, at least so far, at his best at right tackle, and you don't really have to experiment with that. But it also wouldn't surprise me if a guy like Darnell Wright was that pick, but I'm a big fan of Anton Harrison, which is why I have him going here at pick number 19. Moving on to the second round, pick number 50, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selecting Sidney Brown, safety out of Illinois. And look, I know I have talked a lot about the Ryan Neal signing. I like the Ryan Neal signing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I still stand by that. And I think that Sidney Brown would be brought in to compete right away for a starting job with Ryan Neal. Not going to necessarily say he would be the starter right away, but it is certainly a possibility because, look, Brown has already had a top 30 visit with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as did Anton Harrison, by the way, the Bucs' first-round pick in this mock draft, and the interest is there. You also look at the Todd Bowles system, and Brown is a very, very good fit. He is a strong, hard-hitting safety that can do a lot both in pass coverage and especially in run stopping as well. You can send him in on blitz and just do a lot creatively, defensively with a guy like Brown. There have been talks and reports and rumors of the Bucs having a lot of interest. Of course, there's a lot of interest there. He did have a top 30 visit, and it just makes a lot of sense there. So Sidney Brown I have here in round number 2 at pick number 50. He will come in, he will compete with Ryan Neal as a potential starting safety, but the Bucs rotate so many secondary guys anyway, they'll probably end up being co-starters if the Bucs were to draft Brown in this situation. Moving on to round number 3 though, pick number 82, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selecting Quan Martin, cornerback out of Illinois. Look, I have back-to-back Illinois secondary players, but the guys are good, okay? I can't help it. And look, this is another player that has had a top 30 visit with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he has ideal size for a nickel cornerback at 5'11", 194 pounds. He has versatility. He played a little bit of safety. He played a little bit of cornerback while at Illinois. I believe he was listed as a safety while at Illinois, but he is listed as a cornerback going into the NFL, so that confused me a little bit. But I do think Quan Martin here, Jartavius Martin is his full name, but I do think Quan Martin gives you a solid number 3 cornerback to replace Sean Murphy-Bunting, who left in free agency for the Tennessee Titans, and this gives you more time to develop late-round pick Zion McCollum from last year, and all in all, you have a pretty solid 4-man team at that cornerback room. You have Carlton Davis as your cornerback 1, you have Jamel Dean, who you just re-signed on a long-term deal as your cornerback 2, you have Quan Martin, as your cornerback 3, and then you have Zion McCollum as your cornerback 4. That is an incredibly good, incredibly young secondary that I just love a lot. And Jason Light spends a lot of draft picks in the secondary. He's been doing that his entire tenure as a general manager for the Buccaneers, and more times than not, these secondary picks have hit, and I think that that would continue with the picks of Sidney Brown as well as Quan Martin here. So Quan Martin I have going in round number 3 at pick number 82. Moving on to all the way round number 5, pick number 153, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selecting Kendra Coburn, defensive lineman out of Texas, getting a big man for the Todd Bowles defense at 6'2", 332 pounds. He's a pretty big guy, and it gives you a solid backup defensive lineman behind Logan Hall and behind Greg Gaines, and also he could play inside as well behind Vita Vea. It just gives you a lot of versatility. You don't have Will Golston anymore. He is still a free agent. Akeem Hicks is also a free agent. You lost Rakeem Nunez-Roches in free agency. I believe he signed with the New York Giants. So point being is that you could always use a little bit more depth along that defensive line. Kendra Coburn is one of those guys that I think could fit right in, move him around with a lot of versatility. That's like the key word for today in this mock draft. But again, it's a good fit. I believe he also did have a top 30 visit, which if you notice at this point, every single prospect I've had so far has had a top 30 visit, and Coburn is no different here out of Texas. The interest is there, the fit is there. Round number 5, pick number 153, I have the Buccaneers selecting the big man out of Texas. Moving on to the second 5th round pick number 175, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selecting Marte Mapu, linebacker out of Sacramento State. Now, he has played linebacker and safety in college, so more versatility. He played both of those things at Sacramento State. You could see some very similar things there with the Bucs, but I think that this gives you more depth at the linebacker position, given all the Devin White stuff that has been going on right now. His contract disputes, him requesting a trade. You need more depth at that interior linebacker spot because of the stuff that's going on with Devin White. Levante David is unfortunately getting a little bit older now. He may only have 1 or 2 more years left in the book. You have KJ Britt, but you could always add more guys. I don't know if Olukunle Fatukasi is currently on the roster right now. I'm pretty sure he is. I'm like 50-50 on that. But even if he is, you can continue to add. You can continue to have more backup players who can also add special teams value. I think Marte Mapu is a guy that can add special teams value there. He can be a solid special teams player. He can be a versatile defender, and he can be a good backup linebacker if you need him to be as well. And you guessed it, he also has had a top 30 visit with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So Marte Mapu, round 5, pick number 175, is the next selection I have for the Bucs. Moving on to round number 6, pick number 179 is where things get a little spicy maybe for some people. To me, it makes a lot of sense, and I'll explain why, but let's just go ahead and get to it. I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selecting Clayton Tune, quarterback out of Houston, developmental quarterback, baby. I know what people are going to say. James, what in the world are you doing having the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select a quarterback in this draft? They have Baker Mayfield, they have Kyle Trask. What is wrong with you? And look, I understand that some people may say that this is a non-necessity pick, but look, a developmental quarterback in round 6 is not a crazy situation in my mind. You can never have enough potential quarterbacks on your roster, and I think that Tune would be a good QB3 behind Mayfield and behind Trask. Jason Light himself even said that he was not afraid to take a quarterback in this class. They've had 3 quarterbacks with top 30 visits for the Buccaneers. One of them was Will Levis, and I don't think he's going to be there for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selection. One of them is going to be Hendon Hooker. I would love Hendon Hooker on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but I think given the needs that they have at other positions, it just wouldn't make a lot of sense to select Hendon Hooker in, say, round 1 or in round 2. Don't get me wrong, if they did, I would have an absolute party, but point being is that it doesn't make a lot of sense in the early rounds. Here, Clayton Tune, the 3rd quarterback who has had a top 30 visit with the Buccaneers, gives you a fallback option, gives you another developmental guy. He put up great numbers at Houston, was shown to be a phenomenal locker room leader as well, and he can learn behind Trask, behind Mayfield, and be in an offense that I think that Tune is a good fit for an offense that does require a little bit of mobility from your quarterback, but also doesn't put a ton of pressure on your QB. I think is a great offense for Clayton Tune, as well as Trask and Mayfield as well. And Tune doesn't have to start right away because he's going to be under a 4-year deal. You have Mayfield, you have Trask who can battle it out for that starting job, and Tune can just be there and be a guy, an extra arm who can soak up some info, learn, grow, and develop. And yeah, that's why I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selecting in round 6, pick number 179, with their first 6th round selection. With their second 6th round selection, pick number 181, I have them selecting Dante Demas Jr., wide receiver out of Maryland. Now, Demas Jr., I hope I'm saying that last name right, has some great size as a receiver. I believe he's 6'3", 212 pounds, something along those lines. So it gives you a big body wide receiver to add depth at the position. What do I mean by that? Well, I think that right away, Dante Demas Jr. can battle for that number 4 wide receiver spot, given all the depth that was lost this offseason. Scotty Miller's gone. He went to the Atlanta Falcons. Brashad Perriman is not back. Jalen Darden is gone. You have Devin Tompkins, you have Kalen Geiger, but those guys are smaller backup wide receivers, more shiftier types of wide receivers, very similar to, again, kind of what we saw with a guy like Scotty Miller, just a smaller brand of wide receiver. Dante Demas, I think, would be a very good complement to those guys. Gives you a bigger bodied guy, a guy who can be outside, a guy who can just jump up, go grab, and get it type of wide receiver, and I think is just a good backup depth type of guy. Also, Tyler Johnson is not on the team either. He is gone after being on the team's practice squad, so you need depth even more so. So they do get some here in Dante Demas Jr. out of Maryland. And look, I like Maryland guys. They're just good players in my opinion. I'm a big fan of the university, the football team, and it is what it is, man. So Dante Demas Jr., wide receiver out of Maryland, is who I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selecting. Fun fact, it's the first player who has not had a top 30 visit with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers yet that I have in this mock draft. However, there is yet another player here with the next pick who has not had a top 30 visit, but I still think is a pretty good fit. Round 6, pick number 196, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selecting Cameron Peoples, running back out of Appalachian State. He is a big, strong, downhill running back, compares size-wise very much to Derrick Henry, the king himself. Now, obviously, you hope Cameron Peoples is just as good as Derrick Henry, but I think ultimately Peoples would be a good complement to Rachaad White and Chase Edmonds. Those two guys are kind of in the same situation of Dante Demas and the wide receiver situation there with the backup receivers. This is starting running backs, but point being is that whenever you look at Rachaad White, whenever you look at Chase Edmonds, they are shorter, elusive types of running backs, right? Cameron Peoples is a big, strong power back. Good compliment there, and really gives you a complete type of running back room and replaces some of that power that you lost when you let Leonard Fournette go in free agency. And I think that ultimately Peoples can be a solid goal line back and a good back in power running situations. And I met the guy at the Combine. I interviewed him for pretty much his entire media availability. It was a great thing to see. I think the guy has a chip on his shoulder. He's a great character guy, strong leader. Overall, just a great attitude towards the game as well. Had a delightful conversation with him at the Combine. I think it's a good fit. I think he's a great guy to have in your locker room, and I think that Cameron Peoples would be a good selection for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Finally, folks, in round number 7, pick number 252, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selecting Chris Murray, interior offensive lineman out of Oklahoma, and he did have a top 30 visit with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, had to finish it out with one more, and Murray is a versatile offensive lineman. That's been the key word for this mock draft, is versatility, right? Murray has played both guard and center in college. I think that he would be a good backup for either position there in the NFL, and I already talked about him at length whenever he did have that top 30 visit with the Bucs, but just to kind of talk about that more, he can be the backup center behind Ryan Jensen while Hainsey moves back to guard, and it gives you another good developmental player with a lot of good room to grow, I think, in this situation. You look at Murray, you look at Hainsey, you look at Anton Harrison, another Oklahoma offensive lineman I took here in round number 1 for the Bucs. You have Tristan Wirfs in there as well. That's a pretty good young nucleus of offensive linemen there that you can have at your disposal with a lot of versatility to hopefully bring up the next generation of guys that you want to have at your disposal for your offensive line. He did have a top 30 visit with the Bucs. The interest is there, folks, and he could even go earlier than round 7. I just had him slipping here in round 7 because he isn't necessarily the highest ranked prospect, but I think that he is a pretty underrated player and makes a lot of sense for the Bucs. But folks, with that being said, that's it for my mock draft. I want to know what your guys' thoughts and opinions are on this mock draft. I would love to hear them. What do you think about the style of the video, by the way? Kind of shifting to all these different pictures of all the different types of players. I had a lot of fun kind of setting that up and doing that. So if you guys do like that style more in these videos, go ahead and let me know. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions about that as well. Again, if you are new, go ahead and subscribe and hit the like button if you did enjoy these types of videos. Also, you can click the subscribe button that should be on the right-hand side of your screen, or if you want to see the latest video from me, you can check that out probably like right around here where my hand is on the screen. So folks, as always, I will see you all in the next video or the next live stream, but until then, and as always guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.